Hey guys, my name is Edwin, and today I'm going to be teaching about the structures of government. So, as you know, the government has been in the news a lot recently for both good and bad. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about how government operates and how they check each other. So, let's begin. As you know, there are three branches of government: the executive, the legislative, and judicial. But let's first talk about everyone's favorite, the executive. As you know, it's often referred to as the president, but there are actually more to the executive branch other than the president. There are what are called bureaucracies, but I'll get into that a little bit later. So the main job of the president is to enforce laws. So when Congress passes a law, it is the president's job to make sure those laws are enforced and go into effect. When the founders first created the Constitution, they really gave the executive branch limited powers. They feared a monarchy or a powerful leader, so like the British Empire. They did not want that. They wanted balance. So in the Constitution, they gave the president the power to appoint judges, appoint ambassadors, and appoint heads of cabinet positions. They also gave the power to be the commander-in-chief of the army and the navy. So the president can essentially send troops to other nations, or he could send troops within the nation. But what he can't do, he cannot declare war. He needs Congress to declare war. But he can send troops in a time of conflict. Yeah, they also give him the power to grant pardons, which means if somebody was convicted of a crime, they can be released if the president pardons them. That's another power the president has. And finally, I'll be talking about the evolution of the president. At first, presidents were very weak and they did not really make laws. It wasn't until FDR we seen presidents really make laws. And you can see this with Obama's term. Obama really pushed Obamacare, and Obamacare was actually a legislation that came from his cabinet position, the Health and Human Services. So that brings me to my next point of the power of persuasion. Presidents can really persuade Congress to act on legislation such as Obama did with Obamacare. He can really tell Congress, here's what I want to do, and you should do it. So that's probably one of the biggest powers I think the president has, is the power of persuasion. The next thing I like to talk about is the bureaucracies. And like I mentioned before about the Human and Health Services, that is a bureaucracy that sits beneath the president. They also have stuff like the Department of Justice, the Environmental Department, and all that. There are bureaucracies that enforce laws as well as the president. Alright, and the next thing I like to talk about is the legislative branch. The legislative branch is probably the most powerful branch of government we have. They are tasked with the powerful ability to make laws. Any type of lawmaking that happens goes through Congress. There are two chambers, the House and the Senate. The Senate, there are 100 senators, 2 for each state, so 50 states. So 50 times 2 is 100. There's a nice math problem for you right there. And there are 435 members of the House. And how the House works is that each state has a number of districts. So let's take New Jersey, for example. We have 12 districts, so that means we're going to send 12 representatives to the House. And the powers given to Congress in the Constitution are the power to collect taxes, the power to declare war, to regulate commerce, and any nomination the president gives, such as judges, ambassadors, and consuls, like I mentioned before, has to be approved by the Senate. And the last power I like to talk about is the impeachment power. So, if the president steps out of line, it is up to the House first to bring charges or articles of impeachment. But it's ultimately the Senate who removes the president. So basically, once a president commits a crime, he has to go to the House first, and the House will decide if the crime is serious enough to go to the Senate, where he will be decide if he will be removed or not. And we've seen this happen twice before with Bill Clinton and Andrew Jackson, but they were not removed. So basically, they were impeached by the House. So the House decided that the charges were serious enough to bring it on to the Senate, where the Senate voted, and the Senate decided not to remove the president. So we have never had a president been removed. We have had a president been impeached, but not removed. Alright, the last branch of government I like to describe is the judicial branch. And that branch is tasked with interpreting the laws. And this is actually a big power that is relied on the judicial branch. So the judicial branch can strike down laws or orders made by the president or the executive branch. And we saw this in today's world, where we saw Donald Trump give an order to ban individuals from entering the country from certain countries, certain nations, primarily Muslim nations. The court stepped in and the court said, listen, Donald Trump, you cannot do this. You have overreached your boundaries. It is not constitutional. So that's what I mean by interpretation. So Trump gave an order, but the judicial branch decided that that order was not valid. So they struck it down, and that law did not go into effect. The court system is comprised of 3 chambers. There's the district courts. There are 94 of those across the nation. There are the circuit courts, where 13 across the nation, and there's 1 Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has a final say. So, if the lower courts disagree with one another, then the Supreme Court will step in and say the final ruling. And we saw this with the gay marriage law, that circuit courts actually disagreed with one another. We had one circuit court saying that gay marriage was legal, and we had another circuit court saying that gay marriage was not legal and not constitutional. So the Supreme Court stepped in and said that they had the final word. So they said that gay marriage is legal. So now gay marriage is legal across the United States. And that's obviously a big power. They could really change laws with one ruling. And that's a big power that the judicial branch has. And a little fun fact about the judicial branch is actually a basketball court up here. And it's very funny actually, because they actually refer to that as the highest court in the land. But in all actuality, the Supreme Court is the highest court in the land. Alright, the last thing I'd like to discuss is the checks and balances. I briefly touched on this before, but let's go over it. As you see, the executive branch has the power to veto legislation that Congress makes. Congress has the ability to approve president's nominations, and they can impeach, and they can actually override the veto. So let's say a law was vetoed by a president. Congress could say, and they could override that veto with 2/3 of the vote. And the judicial branch, as I said, they can declare actions by the president unconstitutional, and they can have laws made by Congress declared unconstitutional. And the Senate confirmed the president nominations, and the president actually nominates the judges. So as you can see, each branch of government really checks each other, and they all really have to work together in a way. So not one branch is too powerful than the other. Alright, and that's about it. Tomorrow in class, we'll be playing a game of Jeopardy, where I'll be asking you a series of questions related to this video. And so there'll be 2 teams. And the team who wins Jeopardy will be given 10 extra points on the next quiz. So make sure you guys study, make sure you guys take notes, and come prepared tomorrow to play Jeopardy. Alright guys, see you then. Bye.